"I'm not pretty," she whispered. The cowboy replied. "That's fine. I need honest, not fancy." Dry Creek, New Mexico Territory, late autumn, 1878. The dust never quite settled in Dry Creek. It clung to the boots of men, to the windows of shops, to the air itself, red and restless, like the hearts of those who came here chasing something lost or never found. The sun hung low, bleeding gold across a silent street, where every porch creaked with the weight of waiting. At the edge of town, the old overland stagecoach groaned to a halt, wheels crusted in clay. Its door opened slow, deliberate, as if time itself hesitated to step out. A slender boot touched the ground first, then the hem of a gray traveling dress. The woman who emerged was wrapped in modest fabric, her posture straight but uncertain. A lace veil covered her face from forehead to chin, anchored by the brim of a plain straw bonnet. She clutched a small carpetbag tightly in both hands, knuckles pale, fingers trembling. Tyler Carter stood a few yards away, waiting. He had worn his best shirt for the occasion, not new but clean. His hat was pressed down low, shadowing blue eyes that had seen more land than laughter in 35 years. In his hands, rough from rope and saddle, he held a simple bouquet of wild prairie daisies, awkwardly gathered, a few stems still dirt-streaked. Amanda Whitmore approached slowly. The hem of her dress stirred dust, her boots made soft crunching sounds against gravel, the kind that felt too loud in moments like this. The stagecoach driver tipped his hat, then climbed back up, cracking the reins. The horses pulled away, leaving only silence behind. Tyler stepped forward, heart tight in his chest. "Welcome to Dry Creek, Mrs. Carter." His voice was quiet, but steady. Not a man of many words, and yet these had been rehearsed in his mind for days, muttered into mirrors, to horses, into the morning wind. Amanda stopped. She gave the faintest nod. He looked at her hands first, gripping the bag like a lifeline, then at the veil, a shadow beneath the lace, no expression to read, only the slight rise and fall of her breath. "I can carry that for you," he offered gently, motioning to her bag. She shook her head, once, firm. He smiled, not offended. "All right," he said, clearing his throat. "Well, the wagon is this way." He turned, gestured toward the dirt path that curved past the general store and up toward the hills. Amanda followed, 3 paces behind. The veil fluttered faintly in the wind, like a curtain hiding not just her face, but the life she had left behind. They walked in silence. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretched longer. When they reached the wagon, a small, sturdy 2-seater, hitched to a single brown mare, Tyler placed the flowers down on the seat and turned to help her up. Amanda hesitated. Tyler extended his hand, palm up. She took it with gloved fingers, barely touching his skin. He lifted her gently, then climbed in beside her. He waited a moment. "I imagine it's a long way from Boston," he said. She nodded again. He turned toward her, meaning to say something, perhaps about the land, the weather, the house waiting on the hill, but the veil, gently swaying, held him. Something unspoken pressed between them. "May I?" he began, reaching slowly toward the edge of her veil. But before his fingers could graze the lace, Amanda flinched. She pulled back sharply, voice cracking like thin ice. "Don't, please. I'm not pretty." Tyler froze. Then his hand fell to his lap. He studied her a moment longer, and his voice, when it came, was soft, reverent. "That's fine," he said. "I need honest, not fancy." Amanda looked at him through the veil. For a moment, neither of them moved. The horse snorted gently. A hawk called somewhere in the distant cliffs. Then, Tyler picked up the reins. Without another word, they rode on, toward the hills, toward a house, toward something quiet and unnamed that waited in the dust. 1 week later. The Carter homestead stood quiet on the slope above Dry Creek, its clapboard siding weathered but sturdy, like the man who built it. Beyond the house, rows of fence line ran along golden grass, where cattle grazed slow and silent. Every sunrise arrived with wind in the wheat, and the scent of earth warmed by sun. Amanda rose early each day. She swept the porch, washed the tin dishes from breakfast, scrubbed the floors with pine soap, and baked biscuits without complaint. Her movements were precise, purposeful. The only sound that followed her was the swish of her skirts and the soft rustle of her veil. The veil never left her face. Not when she fed the chickens, not when she gathered water, not even when she stood in the kitchen alone. Tyler noticed, but said nothing. Each morning, before she stepped out the door, she found a small, steaming tin cup waiting on the porch rail. Always the same, strong tea with a hint of wild mint, placed neatly beside a folded piece of paper, the handwriting rough but careful. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter. I fixed the fence line today." Or, "The North calf was born overnight, healthy and loud." She never replied, but each day she drank the tea. Inside, she kept the notes in a drawer by the stove, bundled together with a faded blue ribbon that had once been part of her traveling dress. Tyler spent his days with the land. He mended fences, cleaned stalls, patched the roof where winter had chewed through the shingles. He spoke to her politely, briefly, asking only about supplies, never about her past, never about the veil. In town, the whispers began. "They say she won't even let him look at her. Must be something real awful under that lace. Mail order brides, you get what you pay for." At the general store, one man snorted, loud enough to hear. Carter's wife got herself a face like sin and a tongue like silence. Tyler, who stood at the counter paying for flour, did not look up. He gathered his items, tipped his hat, and said quietly, "She does not need to be beautiful to be good." The storekeeper blinked. The room fell still. He walked out without another word. That night, Amanda stood by the window, watching the last light bleed across the hills. Her hands held a folded apron, clean and warm from the stove. Behind her, Tyler stepped in through the back door, boots muddy, shoulders tired. He paused when he saw her silhouette, thin and still against the dusk. He said nothing, just removed his hat and left it on the peg. She turned her head slightly toward him. "I made stew," she said softly through the veil. "Thank you," he answered. "Smells better than anything I ate all year." They sat at opposite ends of the table. He did not stare. She did not hide her voice. As he chewed, she noticed something. When he spoke to her, his gaze never lingered on her face, not with curiosity nor discomfort. He looked at her hands when she served bread. He watched the fire when she spoke. His attention was gentle, respectful. After dinner, he rose, cleared his plate. "I will fix the well pump tomorrow," he said. "It's stubborn as a mule." She nodded, fingers tightening on the edge of her cup. Outside, wind pressed against the walls like an old story trying to get in. Inside, two people who did not know how to fall in love sat in silence, learning how to be kind. Amanda sat at the small kitchen table, her hands stained faintly with blackberry jam from that morning's preserves. A thin sheet of parchment lay before her, creased where she had folded and unfolded it too many times. The ink on the page was still wet. "Dear Clara, you asked me once why I left, why I chose this. The truth is, I could not stay where every mirror felt like mockery. Do you remember when Charles broke off the engagement? He said I would frighten our children. He said he could not kiss a mouth that reminded him of fire. He said his mother warned him not to marry a girl with ruined skin." Her hand paused, hovering. He was right, perhaps. I do not look like the women in town. I do not smile easily. But I am still here, and I have not burned. She stopped writing. The quill trembled in her fingers. Slowly, she folded the letter, tucked it into the pocket of her apron, and stood. She would not send it. Outside, the sun cast long shadows across the barnyard. Tyler was on the porch, seated in his usual chair, whittling a piece of cedar. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, forearms dusted with sawdust and sweat. He looked like someone carved from earth and time, quiet, solid, and alone. Amanda watched him from the doorway for a moment before stepping back into the house. Later that evening, she brought in the folded laundry. As she passed the parlor, she saw the door slightly ajar. Candlelight flickered against the wall. She paused. Tyler was seated at the small writing desk near the window, a wooden box open before him. Inside were only a few items: a black ribbon, a dried yellow flower, and a single photograph. Amanda stood still, her breath shallow. Tyler did not notice her at first. He was staring at the photograph in his hand, a woman, lovely and smiling, with hair pinned neatly behind her ears. Amanda stepped lightly, meaning to pass unnoticed. But Tyler spoke without turning. "She was beautiful," he said, voice low and thoughtful. Amanda froze. Tyler continued, not lifting his gaze. "Everyone said so, and she knew it. But she lied to me." Amanda's voice came hesitant. "About what?" He exhaled slowly. "About who she was, about what she wanted. She married a cowboy but dreamed of city lights. She said she loved the land, but she hated the quiet. Hated me, eventually." Amanda stepped closer. The lace of her veil caught the candle's glow. "She left?" she asked softly. He finally looked up, his eyes tired but open. "One morning, she just rode away. No goodbye." Amanda's hands twisted around the hem of her apron. "I am sorry." He shook his head. "It was years ago, but it taught me something." She waited. He looked at her, not at the veil, but through it. "I do not need perfect," he said. "I do not even need kind all the time. I just need true. I find." Amanda swallowed, her voice barely audible. "What if I am not?" He blinked. "Not what?" She lowered her gaze. "What if I am not true? What if I disappoint you?" Tyler stood slowly, walked toward her. Stopped just close enough to speak softly. "I am not afraid of disappointment, Amanda." She met his eyes. He added quietly, "I'm afraid of lies, not scars." And in that moment, with a veil between them and the weight of two pasts hanging heavy in the air, something fragile passed between their hearts, a trust born not of promises, but of pain. The wind came without warning, howling down from the north like a beast loosed from the mountains. Trees bowed, dust rose, chickens scattered. Amanda stood at the kitchen window, eyes narrowed at the dark sky tumbling overhead. A sharp crack split the air. She turned toward the barn and saw the roof buckle, one corner collapsing in a blur of shingles and hay. Lightning flashed behind it. Thunder rolled so close it rattled the walls. Then she heard it, the frantic cries of horses. She grabbed her shawl, tied it tight around her head, veil tucked underneath, and bolted out the door. Her boots slipped in mud as rain hammered down, but she pressed forward, skirts dragging heavy behind her. Inside the barn, the mares kicked and twisted in their stalls, their eyes wide with fear. Amanda flung the gates open, trying to soothe them with a voice nearly drowned by the storm. "It's all right," she called. "Easy now, I'm here, I've got you." One of the horses reared. Amanda ducked, slipped in the straw, and fell hard. Her shoulder struck a beam, and her veil caught on a nail, tearing down the middle. She gasped. Not from the fall, but from the cold air suddenly touching her skin, her cheek, her neck, the long, pale scar that curved like a river of ash. She scrambled up, one hand pressed to her face, trying to hold the veil together with muddy fingers. Footsteps thundered behind her. "Amanda!" Tyler's voice, urgent, strained. He rushed in, soaked to the bone, eyes searching until they found her crouched by the stall. He dropped to his knees beside her. "You're hurt." "Don't look at me," she cried, turning away. "Please, do not look." Her voice cracked, full of something deeper than fear, shame, years thick. "I know I'm ugly. I know. I do not want your pity." Tyler froze. Then, slowly, he shrugged off his coat. Without saying a word, he draped it gently over her shoulders, pulling it close around her like a blanket. Amanda flinched at first, then stilled. His hands were shaking. Not from fear, not from disgust, from care. He helped her to her feet, one arm around her back, steadying her as the rain poured harder. They stumbled out of the barn and into the house, leaving muddy footprints on the wooden floors. Inside, he guided her to the bench by the hearth. The fire was low, flickering weakly. Tyler knelt in front of her, still breathless, still dripping. Amanda turned away, pressing the torn veil to her cheek. "I should have stayed hidden," she whispered. "I should have stayed inside." Tyler reached out, tentative, careful, and took her hand in his. It trembled in his grip. "You think I care about a scar?" he said, voice low. She said nothing. He squeezed her hand gently. "You think I came all this way, married a stranger, because I was looking for a perfect smile?" Still silence. "I have lived through drought, through nights colder than stone, through the sound of my own name echoing with no one to answer, and you—" He paused, eyes soft. "You ran into a falling barn to save animals that are not even yours yet. You fell, bled, stood back up. You are more courage than I ever carried in my whole damn body." She looked at him then, really looked. Rain still drummed against the windows. Somewhere outside, the barn moaned with wind. Tyler raised his hand slowly and brushed a streak of mud from her cheek. His touch was light, reverent, not afraid, not repulsed. He did not stare, he did not flinch. "I love how you fight," he said. "I love how you care. I love the truth in you." Amanda blinked hard. No one had ever said love to her and meant it to mean this. She looked down, hands clutching his coat around her. He rose without another word, tossed another log onto the fire, and sat beside her, close, but not pressing. She stayed still. The veil, torn and sodden, lay forgotten on the floor. And though she would wear another in the days to come, something inside her had shifted, something quiet and small, but warm. For the first time she believed maybe love could begin even where beauty never had. The sun had barely risen when the first whispers began. By midday, they spread like wildfire through the post office, the general store, the saloon. "Carter's wife, she wears that veil for a reason. Some say her face is half melted, burned bad in a fire. He married her sight unseen. Poor man didn't know better. She's not a woman, she's a warning." Someone, no one knew who, called her the monster bride. Amanda heard it behind her back first. Then one morning, she caught it full in the face. She had gone to the mercantile alone. Tyler was mending a fence. She needed flour. Her veil fluttered in the breeze as she walked past the porch where two women and an old man played checkers. One of them, Mrs. Pike, sour-mouthed widow with too much time, leaned in as Amanda passed and muttered loud enough for the board to hear, "Well, I suppose if I looked like that, I'd wear a curtain too." Laughter, low and mean. Amanda froze mid-step, then walked on, spine stiff, hands clenched at her sides. She paid for her things, in silence. By the time she returned to the homestead, her hands shook too much to cook dinner. That night, Tyler returned to a quiet house. The hearth was cold, the table unset. He found only a folded piece of paper, resting where her cup of tea should have been. "I wanted to be enough. I guess I never will." His chest tightened. He dropped the note, grabbed his coat, and rode out before the sun fully vanished. He searched the town first. Nothing. The hills, empty. Then he remembered. Amanda's mother lived 2 ridges over, past the old orchard. A widow, half-blind, poor as stone. Amanda had mentioned her only once, voice soft, almost guilty. Tyler rode through the night. The shack was crooked and leaning, smoke curling weakly from the chimney. He knocked once, then pushed the door open. The old woman sat in a rocker by the fire, a quilt over her knees, eyes milky but alert. "You're the husband," she rasped, not unkindly. "She's in the back, been crying, said she didn't belong." Tyler removed his hat. I need to speak with her." The woman held up a hand, stopping him. "Let her rest, she's been carrying too much." She gestured to a chair. He sat. The woman leaned forward, her voice rough but steady. "You want to know what gave her that scar?" Tyler didn't answer. just looked down at his hands. She was 16. There was a fire at the church house. A boy got stuck inside. No one would go in, not even the preacher. But she ran in after him, dragged him out. His mama still sends us letters, calls Amanda an angel. Tyler looked up, jaw tight. The woman smiled faintly. But you know how folks are. They forget who saved who. Only remember what's ugly. He swallowed hard. The image of Amanda, muddy, soaked, trembling in his coat, rose in his mind. She is not ugly, he said softly. No, her mother replied. She's the strongest person I know. But strong women break too, when love gets quiet. Tyler nodded. Then he reached out, gently, as if afraid to offend, and took the woman's frail hand in his own. Did you know, he whispered, that your daughter is the bravest soul in all of Dry Creek? The woman's lips trembled. Tyler stood, steady now. I will bring her home, he said, not because she needs saving, but because I cannot breathe right without her. In the next room, Amanda lay awake, tears soaking the pillow. She heard every word, and something inside her, heavy and hopeless for days, shifted, just a little, toward light. Tyler rode back under a sky the color of old tin, clouds drifting slow across the ridges. The wind had calmed since the night before, but the ache in his chest hadn't. When he reached the homestead, everything felt too quiet. Amanda's shawl still hung on its peg. Her teacup was still on the porch rail, rim stained with a hint of wild mint. Inside, the air was stale with silence. He lit the stove more out of habit than hunger, then walked to the small cedar chest beneath their bed. It was where she had placed her wedding dress, folded neatly, untouched since the day she arrived. He opened the lid. The fabric was soft, simple cotton with a high collar and hand-stitched trim. It had torn at the shoulder seam during the storm, the night she fell in the mud, the veil ripped, her shame laid bare. Tyler lifted the dress slowly, like something holy. He laid it across the kitchen table, smoothing the wrinkles with his calloused hands. Then he went to the cabinet, pulled out a sewing kit he had not used in years. The needle looked small in his fingers. The thread trembled as he tried to guide it through the eye. He cursed under his breath more than once, but never stopped. The stitches were crooked, uneven. Some puckered the fabric. But they held. Each one was deliberate, not rushed, not perfect, just honest. He worked by lamplight, hunched over the dress as if mending something far more fragile than cotton. Maybe he was. Maybe he hoped, stitch by stitch, to speak the words Amanda would not believe if he simply said them. He finished before dawn. The next morning, the townsfolk rose to find something strange on Carter's porch. The wedding dress hung from a wooden hanger on the railing, gently swaying in the morning breeze. Its hem kissed the floorboards, freshly cleaned, stitched with care. Above it, nailed to the post, was a small, hand-carved sign. The letters, carved rough, read, "For the bravest woman I know." People stopped. At first, just one, an old woman on her way to the well. She paused, stared, and walked on. Then another came, and another. By noon, someone had left a single daisy on the porch rail. An hour later, a jar of wildflowers joined it. By sundown, there were a dozen, bouquets, small notes, a fresh apple pie, even a crocheted shawl. No one spoke about it aloud. But the whispers changed. She saved a child, you know. Ran into a burning building. Maybe Carter was right after all. She's not what we thought. She's more. Tyler said nothing to anyone. He sat on the porch that evening, boots muddy, hat resting on his knee. The wind shifted through the cottonwoods, brushing against the dress like fingers of memory. He watched as one man, quiet, usually cruel, approached with a bundle of bluebells. He placed them gently beneath the dress and stepped back, head bowed. "Guess I was wrong," the man murmured. Tyler didn't respond. He did not need to. The message had been sent, not with fists or arguments, but with thread. With crooked stitches, and one small sign carved by a man who had never learned poetry, but understood what it meant to honor someone with his hands. Amanda had not returned, but the house had begun to wait for her, not just as a place, but as a truth. She was not a hidden thing anymore. She was courage, sewn into cotton. And for the first time since Tyler Carter came to Dry Creek, the town saw love not as something pretty, but as something earned. Amanda arrived just as the sun began dipping behind the hills, its gold brushing the tops of the prairie grass like a whisper. Her boots crunched over the gravel path leading to the house, now strangely still, wrapped in the hush that comes before something sacred. She had not planned to return that day. In truth, she had not planned anything since fleeing. But something, the wind, the ache in her chest, her mother's silent nod, had carried her back. When the homestead came into view, she stopped in her tracks. The wedding dress. It hung from the porch rail, swaying gently in the breeze, its once torn shoulder now crudely but lovingly mended. Beneath it lay bundles of wildflowers, fresh fruit in jars, and folded cloths, all left by strangers who once stared at her veil with suspicion. Above the dress, carved into a plank of wood, were words that reached straight into her bones. "For the bravest woman I know." Her breath caught. A hand flew to her mouth as tears welled, blurring the words into golden streaks. She walked the last step slowly, her heart trembling in a way it had not in years. The veil fluttered at her sides, barely held now by a pin behind her ear. Tyler was already there. He stood by the fence, hands loose at his sides, not moving, not speaking. He had seen her approach from the road but had made no gesture. He did not walk to her. He did not smile. He waited. Amanda turned to him, throat tight. Her voice, when it came, cracked with all she had carried. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you do all this?" Her eyes searched his, desperate for something she could not name. He took a step forward, then stopped, no closer than he had to be. "Because I do not need beautiful," he said. "I do not need perfect. I do not need fancy words or smooth skin or a face the world admires." He let the silence hold a moment, firm and gentle. "I need real. I need someone who runs into fire to save a child, who speaks less but means more, who hides, not out of vanity, but because the world never taught her how to be seen." Amanda looked at the dress again, then at the man who had sewn it. Tyler's voice softened. "And you, Amanda Whitmore, you are the realest person I have ever known." Her fingers rose slowly. They found the edge of her veil, the last shield between them, and hesitated. Tyler did not urge her. His eyes stayed steady, his feet stayed planted. Amanda closed her eyes, and then, with a breath she had been holding since the day she left home at 16, she pulled the veil from her face. The wind caught it, lifted it briefly, then dropped it gently onto the porch boards. Her scar, now pale but unmistakable, curved from beneath her ear down to the edge of her jaw. Her skin bore its story openly. Tyler looked at her, only her. Not with pity, not with surprise. Just with the quiet awe of a man who had been waiting a very long time to finally see someone fully. Amanda stood barefaced in the golden light, tears sliding freely down her cheeks. And for the first time, she was not afraid to be looked at. The sky that evening was the kind of blue that artists try to paint but never quite get right. Washed soft by the light, touched gold at the edges, endless in every direction. The wind carried the scent of prairie grass and wild sage, rustling gently through the tall stems of the meadow behind the house. There, among the wildflowers, stood Amanda and Tyler. No church, no altar, no guests in fine clothes. Just a small gathering of neighbors, quiet and humbled, scattered among the field, standing in a respectful circle. Most of them had never spoken to Amanda directly before. Now they came not to judge, but to witness. Amanda wore her wedding dress, the same simple cotton one, its seams repaired by Tyler's own hands. She had removed the veil completely, her face uncovered beneath the soft curls pinned behind her ears. The scar across her cheek and neck was bare, catching the fading light with honesty instead of shame. Tyler wore a clean shirt, his sleeves rolled up like always, boots scuffed but polished. He stood tall, weathered, his hands folded in front of him like a man who had found the one thing he never thought he'd deserve. There was no preacher. Only an old neighbor, Mr. Henley, with a leather Bible in one hand and a harmonica in his pocket, who had agreed to speak a few words. "I figure," he said, looking around, "love don't always need a building or a bell. Sometimes it just needs two folks brave enough to stand still in the same place." A few chuckles, a few teary smiles. Amanda and Tyler joined hands. Tyler's thumb gently brushed over the back of hers, a small movement, but full of reverence. The wind played with her dress, tugged gently at his collar. When it was time for vows, Amanda's voice trembled, but did not break. "I don't have much to give," she said quietly, eyes only for him. "Just work-worn hands, a scarred face, and a heart that's learning how to stay." Tyler didn't speak for a moment. His throat moved as he swallowed. Then, softly, he said, "That's everything I ever needed." A silence settled over the field, sacred and still. Amanda took a half-step closer, her voice almost a whisper. "I'm still not pretty." Tyler looked at her, the corner of his mouth lifting into the gentlest smile. "That's fine," he said. "I need honest, not fancy." He lifted one hand and placed it softly against her cheek, his thumb resting just beside the scar. Then he leaned in and pressed a kiss to her forehead, right where the mark began. Gasps were heard from some in the crowd, not from shock, but from something like awe. There were no rings. Just hands held tight, just vows spoken true, just the sound of wildflowers brushing against boots, and a harmonica beginning to play a slow, tender tune as Mr. Henley stood back and gave them space. Tyler and Amanda stood together, sunlight kissing their shoulders, the wind tossing the ends of her dress in little loops of joy. They did not need music. The land sang for them. From a distance, it would have looked like nothing, just two figures in a field, a patch of white dress, a few scattered people. But if someone had stood there with a camera, if a lens had panned slowly outward, the frame would have filled with gold, light, and dust hanging like halos in the air, and love, quiet, unwavering, settling over them like a second skin. And if there had been a voice, a narrator to end the tale, it might have said, "Out here in the West, beauty fades with the sun and wind, but truth, and the courage to love with open eyes, endures." Then the scene would fade, the harmonica still playing softly, and the screen would darken, but the feeling, that ache, that warmth, would stay. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe, even just a little, that love doesn't have to be perfect to be powerful, then you're already part of something we hold dear here. At Wild West Love Stories, we tell the kinds of tales that ride slow but hit deep, stories of scars and second chances, of men who speak soft, and women who dare to stay. Tap that bell, hit that like, subscribe to join us for more unforgettable romances from the heart of the American frontier. Because out here, bullets may have missed, but hearts never did.